cookies they get out. I go, well, I'm not for that either. And they're like, huh? Like, you know, the lines are so drawn that if you're against it all, people are just amazed. But you know, when you talk about the Reggie tax, that's 30%, and you know, we factor this into other forms of taxation on energy. Greg, you're looking at that's 30%. You've got the home heating oil tax, what's that, 25%.
25%.
Right, and on top of that, you got the state. We're not even going to get into the federal gas tax that Obama has talked about, but on the state level, what do they do? 65, 67% on gas tax increases?
That's right, 67% gas tax increase, 25% home heating oil tax increase, and 30% Reggie tax increase. It means it's going to be more expensive for you to fill up your gas tank or diesel tank. I don't, you know, a lot of these truckers, which deliver all the goods that we buy at the store, have to be transported via diesel. So it's more expensive to fill up your tank, more expensive to heat your home, more expensive to turn on your lights. We call this is what we call a war on energy consumers across the state of New Hampshire. And unfortunately, the House passed all three of these programs. It's going to make it more expensive and harder for the average citizens who's struggling to get by when they start paying many. I mean, it depends. I mean, when all these things are added up, it's going to be a real hit. When you start talking about adding up all these new taxes, and meanwhile, at the same time, everyone's patting themselves on the back, talking about how wonderful they are for all the great things they can do with their money. But let's start thinking about the person who's paying the bill.
Oh, no, Greg, come on now. You're being quite optimistic here.
Crazy talk.
Great, exactly. You're crazy. But on the WNTK Newsline, it's Greg Moore from Americans for Prosperity. Hey, Greg, on another thing, you know, we talk about how do I say this politely, but, you know, let's face it, when we talk about servers, people who work in restaurants, people who work for tips, I would say that they are lower income when we talk about the whole base of workers. And, you know, we've been told by many people, I'm going to try and stay down the middle here, by many people that there'll be no taxes on the middle class or the lower class. But now we're seeing in the state of New Hampshire, they want to put some new taxes, like the business enterprise tax, which would affect the tips that already workers who are struggling to make it, they're going to get hit with more taxes. You want to talk about that one?
Absolutely. This is another one. And this is a time in the restaurant industry where they're struggling to implement Obamacare, which is, you know, is going to be brutal for the servers because a lot of them are going to get their hours cut down so they're not subject to these mandatory taxes the businesses won't be as far as the coverage requirements. And now the DRA has taken a 5-year-old rule. 5 years it's been in place, and now it says, hey, we got this new interpretation of this rule, and we're going to start forcing businesses to start paying a payroll tax on tips that are collected. These tips don't ever go to the business; they go directly to the server. And yet the DRA suddenly wants the business to pay taxes on those tips that they never see. And there's a hearing today in front of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, and there's a bill to block the DRA from doing this because they were hitting some restaurateurs with bills for tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, saying, "Oh, by the way, guess what?" And it all comes down to the government's insatiable need for more tax revenue in terms of emptying out every last penny in your pocket so they can grow government some more. And so Americans for Prosperity is 100% opposed. We'll be up there today opposing the legislation and actually opposing the rule and supporting the legislation to block it. And we certainly hope that these people start taking a little more concern about the little guy who's getting hit with these energy taxes, with these new taxes on servers, and on the small businesses that are restaurants across the state.
Well, and I also think that we need to start holding our politicians' feet to the fire on these taxes because, like I said, they come up with this, they run and they say, we're not going to raise taxes, especially, you know, it seems like they all focus on the middle class and the lower middle, and they say, we're not going to raise taxes, and they hit people with stuff like this. So, well, that's not technically a tax, that's a rule. It's like,
well,
come on.
I'll tell you what. There's a language of love that always exists with people who is honestly called self-righteous income redistributors. You know, these people have great ideas of what to do with your money, and they have to figure out a way to get it from you. And they usually find that the people who usually aren't paying attention are usually the people who are working hard for a living. and not the people who have the time to sit around and think about it, meaning a lot of the wealthier people who would actually fight. Most servers don't know what's going on in Concord. They have no idea what's going on with the Department of Revenue Administration's administrative rules, that's for sure. And all they're going to know is, oh my goodness, my boss is telling me he has to let me go because of this new rule that's been put in place. How come I just lost my job? And it's unfortunate that it's hard to make that connection, but that's what groups like Americans for Prosperity are here to do, to make sure that people know what's going on in their government.
It all sounds good, Greg. We're going to have to talk to you next week.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Ben, and I hope you're doing well.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you next Tuesday at 7:40. Thanks a lot, Greg. That's Greg Moore, Americans for Prosperity. Check him out at Americans for Prosperity, all one word.org. You can throw a / New Hampshire on there. They can tell you what's going on in the House and the bills and the taxation that is affecting you. When you get a chance, go over there and see some of the stuff that is going on. Ideas so good, they got to legislate them. Hey, it is 7:52.
Hi, this is Jerry Cross of One Credit Union. It's back! Yes, it's Motor Madness, that crazy time of year when One Credit Union goes off the chart and offers rates that are simply unheard of for new and used cars and trucks and motorcycles. Hey, just about anything with a motor. We'll finance it and you won't believe how low a rate you can get. As crazy as it sounds, people wait for this event each year to get the wheels